Hi, everybody. My name's O.Hossack, agriculture education instructor and FFA advisor here at Sequoyah Public Schools. Hope everybody is doing good. Excited about what we're going to talk about today, but before we get to that, if you watch the very first week that we did this, we did a soil experiment, and finally, after 2 weeks of settling, we finally have some clear water up top. We can see our very thin layer of clay there, followed by our silt, and then kind of our granular sand down at the bottom. And so I just kind of wanted to update you guys and show you how that worked out. As far as our actual values, excuse me, as far as the actual values of percentages of different things, they remained pretty much the same. That the clay layer may have gotten just a little bit deeper, but less. So I just thought that was kind of cool. Just show you guys what it looks like when the experiment is all the way done. Today we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is dairy products. One of my favorite things to do is have a big glass of chocolate milk, and so what we're going to do is talk about kind of the science behind it, what milk is made up of, a little bit of the production, and at the end I'm going to show you guys how to make some ice cream. So between Miss Helbig and myself, you guys will be your sweet tooth will be satisfied over this last hour. Okay, but before we get to the fun stuff, let's talk about kind of some of the some of the terms and philosophies and kind of the whys behind some of the stuff. Okay, so you may ask yourself, what is dairy? Well, dairy is going to be any product made from milk or products of milk, and so there's different components. Probably the two most popular, right, other than just milk itself, will be either cheese or yogurts, and so both of those products are made using milk as the base, and then there's various processes that are done to each to create both of those products. And so milk itself is going to be a liquid produced in the mammary glands of mammals, and so things like cattle, sheep, goats, hogs, giraffes, whatever mammal species, right? Usually they're going to produce some type of milk. And so the purpose of that is to basically provide a clicker that looks like I lost the batteries to. It's not working. It's basically to provide a nutritious supplement for the baby animal, the calf, the lamb, the kid, the puppy, whatever it might be, a nutrient source for them to survive and develop on before their body's ready to start digesting more complex foods. So milk by the numbers, these are from 2018 was the most recent that I can find. Usually every 5 to 10 years, the United States Department of Agriculture does a survey, and so certain industries get hit at different intervals throughout that. And so 2018 was the last milk I could find, but my guess is they're probably going to be pretty close. Okay, so the average American, so maybe this isn't necessarily you. You might be under this number, it might be over this number, but Americans on average are going to have 48.8 pounds of milk per year. And so if you think about, 50 pounds of milk, more or less, I mean, that's a lot of weight. And this number has actually been declining as more health concerns have come across, as people's diets have shifted, really starting 60s, 70s, the milk number of pounds per person has steadily decreased, and that's affected the dairy industry in a lot of different ways. And so they've had to rely on adapting and overcoming some of those different challenges. And so if you're a Parks and Recreation fan, like I was, there was Ron Swanson on there. He had a great quote. He said, "There's two things I can't stand. That's liars, and skim milk." And skim milk is just lying about being milk. And so we'll get into that. But on average, about 14 pounds of skim milk is consumed per year. That 48 pounds was whole milk, and then about 14 and a half pounds of flavored milks are going to be consumed, and that's going to be your chocolates. If you're one of those people that like strawberry milk, that's not my thing. Maybe it's yours. About 14 and a half pounds per year on average. And so again, some may be more, some may be less, but those are just kind of the averages. Okay, as we look at dairy production states, right? I'm sure you've seen the commercials on television. Maybe you've heard it on the radio or scrolling through the gram. You'll see, happy cows come from California, or Wisconsin has their milk, real cheese or real cows or whatever. I can't think of it at the time, but most people think of California and Wisconsin as the big milk producing states. And by pounds of milk produced, they are first and second. So California produces the most. Thinking back, it's about. I'm not going to say the exact number because I can't remember it, and I'll get called out on it. So then Idaho, New York, and then Texas. And if you think about all of these different states, aside from California and Texas, so really focusing on Wisconsin, Idaho, and New York, a lot of their ground, right, isn't necessarily maybe the best pasture ground. So whether it's used for poultry production or dairy production, places with very adequate grass, usually that space is utilized for things like beef cattle or maybe some other species of livestock. So you may be wondering to yourself, where does Oklahoma fall in? We are 31st in the nation of dairy production. I believe we just barely outed Nevada as they're 32nd, and so it's a good thing we're beating the desert in dairy production. That's neither here nor there. Historically, Northeast Oklahoma had quite a few dairies. As the dairy industry declined, as Tulsa and the surrounding area grew and become more populated, a lot of that land that was traditional dairy became basically more valuable as subdivisions as it was to be in dairy production. And so as we lose land to urbanization, it affects a lot of different industries, and the dairy industry has definitely been one of those that has been affected. Okay, so milk consists of a bunch of different components, and so you go to the store, right? You get your carton or your bottle or your jug of milk, whatever nomenclature you use, right? And you look on the back and you see, it's got fats, cholesterol, sodium, carbs, all those fun things. But there's really just a few components that make up milk, and what we're talking about is going to apply pretty much just to milk produced from cattle when we get into the percentages and things. Okay. We have water, lactose, or sugar, okay, fat, proteins, vitamins, and minerals, okay? And the actual percentage breakdown, we're going to talk about each of these individually, but the different percentages of each vary from breed to breed of dairy cattle, okay? When we talk about breeds of dairy cattle, the most iconic one is going to be the Holstein, right? So if you close your eyes and you envision a pasture full of beautiful dairy cattle, right? This is probably the one you're going to be thinking of. They're going to be really tall. They're going to be white with all these black spots, and they're going to be the most popular breed in the United States. When it comes to milk production, you are either in quantity or you are in quality. Okay, and the Holstein breed is going to be in the quantity side of things. They're going to produce a lot of milk, but it may not necessarily be the most flavorful or the most desirable as far as taste and flavor and those kinds of things. So the average Holstein dairy cow that's in production is going to produce, on average, and we're talking a lot about averages today, 21,167 pounds of milk per year. So basically, you have a pickup truck in weight of milk being produced by 1 cow per year. So if you times that by all of the dairy cattle in the United States, that is a lot of milk produced. Okay, their particular product is going to be low in butterfat and protein. We're going to talk about those two components here in more detail here in a second, compared to other breeds. Okay, so if we compare them to one of the other more popular breeds in the dairy industry, okay, that would be the Jersey. Okay, so if you just look at the number, they're going to produce about 16,000 pounds of milk per year. So significantly less. However, the milk that they do produce is going to be higher in butterfat and higher in protein than that produced by the Holstein. Okay, and that butterfat component, or the fat component of milk, is what's going to give and taste. Just like if you go to the store and you're looking for the best steak, right? You see one that's got that big white fat ring around the outside of it, that cap. That's going to taste better than if you have one that is just barely a little bit of marbling and barely a little bit of fat on the edges. That's what's going to give it its flavor. Same thing with our milk. Okay, back to the components. About 87 to 88% of milk is going to be water. Okay, so that's what allows it to flow. That's what that's basically what makes it into its liquid. All those other components are going to be solids, so those are diluted by the water and allow it basically to flow through the mammary system of the dairy cow. So one thing that is important, if you have any animal, whether it's if you have a schnauzer that just had puppies, or you have a hog, or a cow, right? Those water requirements are going to be very high because they're going to be using a lot, basically, to produce that milk. Okay, the other component, and one of the components that can cause some people some issues, is lactose. And so lactose is basically the sugar or the carbohydrate that is in the milk itself, and it makes up about 5% of the total composition. Okay, so lactose is actually two different sugar molecules bound together. Okay, galactose and glucose. And so I know this is what you're worried about at home. Well, how do I know which is which? Because when you're sitting there late at night, you're done looking through TikTok. You're like, I'm going to study some sugar molecules. Okay, the one. So all these OHs, we have oxygen, hydrogen bonded. Okay, the one that has the extra water molecule attached to our OH is going to be our glucose. Okay, I know at home you were worried about that. Okay, the fat portion of the milk itself is going to make up about 3%. This is what's going to give its flavor, and like we talked about before, it can vary from breed to breed. Also, the diet that particular animal is on can affect some of the fat content of the milk itself. Okay, proteins are another large component. Okay, about 3% of the total composition. 9 essential amino acids come from milk. So, if you're like me and you're just working out constantly and just getting huge, there's a little bit of sarcasm in that. Okay, a lot of people take milk as a post workout supplement because it has that protein and those essential amino acids that are needed to be able to develop and build muscle. Okay. The two major proteins are going to be whey and casein. I'm sure you've seen like big tubs of like whey protein, right? And so it's derived from milk. So if somebody has a milk allergy, they would want to stay away from some of those products. Okay, a lot of vitamins and minerals as well. And this is an important time. I'm going to run out of time, so I'm going to have to speed through this. Okay, so if we look at if we don't trip over our microphone, if we look at our, Oak Farms Dairy doesn't sponsor this either. If we look at our gallon or half gallon here of milk, on the back we see whole milk, vitamin D, grade A, pasteurized, homogenized, and then a whole bunch of things. Under the ingredients it says milk and then vitamin D3. And so that's usually can be found on the front or the back of the label. One of the vitamins and minerals that is in some milk but is not naturally in milk is vitamin D. The process of adding vitamin D is called fortification. So if you see fortified milk, that's basically all it's talking about, is that we've added vitamin D into that particular product. Okay, so you may say, well, why are we doing this? And there's several different nutritional reasons. Vitamin D helps with your immune system and some other essential functions that occur within the human body. Okay, but that process is called fortification. Two of those other terms that I was hoping to go a little bit more in depth about, but due to time constraints, we're just going to hit them briefly here, is pasteurization and homogenization. So homogenization or homogenized milk is basically, there's some processes that happen to it, and it spreads, okay, all of these components out evenly throughout the entire container. So if left to its own devices, if we had non-homogenized product, the little pieces of fat would start to stick together and collect, and you would have one sip of milk would taste different than the next and the next and the next, because they wouldn't all be evenly distributed. And so through that process of homogenization, those milk particles are broken up very, very tiny to where they're not going to form together either at all or as quickly. So you want homogenized milk, and that is a quality assurance measure taken by dairy producers to make sure that every drink you have tastes exactly the same as the last, or will taste the same as the next. The other word that's on there is pasteurization. I'm sure there's some fantastic science teachers out there, either on YouTube or maybe you've heard about it in class, that talk about the process of pasteurization, and basically that's going to heat up the milk. That's going to heat up the milk to a certain temperature for a short period of time, and the purpose of that is to destroy some of the different bacteria and things that could be found within the milk, and that is there to help keep you, the consumer, safe. Okay. The controversy in the ag world surrounding milk is raw milk versus pasteurized and homogenized. Pasteurization is there to protect the consumers, right? The reason why we don't just boil it is because we don't want to destroy all those fats and proteins and ruin some of those vitamins and minerals. We want that source to be there and undisturbed, but we also want to preserve the quality of the milk. Okay, so one of my favorite dairy products is going to be ice cream. Okay, and what I'm going to do today is show you kind of the quick and dirty way to be able to make it at home. This is one of my favorite things to do, and you can do it probably with things you already have at home, so you don't have to go out to the store or wherever it is you collect. You don't have to go out and mine your own salt. So basically, it's real simple. We're gonna need milk, 2 cups. Okay, I like to use whole milk because it has more fats in it, and it gets a little bit better of a flavor. You could use chocolate milk or strawberry milk for different flavors as well. You're going to need a half a cup of granulated sugar. Yes, that is a lot of sugar. Trust me, it'll taste better if you use half a cup, and don't try to skimp here. There's no paleo ice cream. Not in my house anyways. Okay, and then you're going to need 1 of vanilla extract. You're going to need some rock salt. You can use table salt, but you're just going to need a lot of it, and then you need some ice. Okay, so how this is going to work as we hurry through this, and we'll try to talk about some of the different percentages of milk here. Okay, you're going to take basically a quart-size bag like so. Okay, hopefully you paid attention to Ms. Helbig before this, and you know all about how to use your measuring cups and different measuring devices. So I'm going to take 2 cups of milk, and I'm going to try not to spill it all over the table. Okay, there's 1. Getting dangerous here, going one-handed. All right, there's our 2nd cup. Okay, we're then going to take some granulated sugar, and we are going to get half a cup, and then we're going to spill a bunch all over the table that we'll have to clean up quickly. Okay, and then we're going to take 1 tablespoon, and make sure it's a tablespoon, of vanilla extract, and that's going to kind of color the milk just a little bit, but it's going to give it a lot of good flavor. Okay, so it's important here that we try to get as much of the air out of this bag as we can, and so use whatever method you are most comfortable with. Okay, and then you need to secure the bag, so make sure that it is very secure. Okay, I'm going to double bag it, and the reason for that is if this tears, I don't want salt getting into my solution, or I don't want the milk spilling out all over the floor and then getting yelled at by your mother or spouse or whoever is around you at the time. Okay, then I'm going to take a gallon bag. I'm going to put quite a bit of ice into it. Chris, how are we doing on time? Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to fill the bottom of that with some ice. I'm going to put the bag of milk in there. Milk and other ingredients, I should say. I'm then going to put some more ice in there. Okay, and then you may be thinking yourself, the ingredients list said you needed salt and you didn't put any in the bag, and that is correct. Okay, we're going to take our salt and we're going to mix it in with the ice, and so again, kind of some of the sciencey stuff is that the salt is going to lower the freezing temperature of the water in there. So some of our ice is going to melt, but it's basically going to get below 32 degrees. Okay, and so once we get to this point, you should have something like this. Again, secure the bag. You don't want ice going everywhere. You don't want making a mess. Okay, and then you're just going to shake it for as long as your little brother or sister will before their hands get cold. Then you have to switch, and then you actually have to finish it out. So what'll happen is, as you shake this, and we probably don't have enough time to actually do it on camera, or I'm sure that shaking sounds really great through your audio as well. That the milk mixture that we have in there is going to start to solidify. 5 to 8, 10 minutes or so. It's kind of more of a art than a science. But once that's there, then you're going to be able to enjoy your ice cream. Okay. If you have any questions about that, there is a ton. I was going to say 1,000. I don't know the actual number. There is a ton of videos out there. I found this particular extravagant recipe on the Food Network. They did their own. They had their own like at-home ice cream kind of deal. You can get. They make mixers, and you still use ice and salt and some of the other components that we used, but instead of shaking the bag, it does it for you manually. So if you think about ice cream production on a large scale, the process is going to be pretty much exactly the same, only it's going to be a lot bigger. We're going to incorporate machines to do all of the shaking for you. This is my Taylor Swift reference here to the Shake It Off video. Hope you caught that. Okay, a couple more things. Well, we got some time. Okay, here we have whole milk. We talked about skim milk earlier. I'm sure you've seen 2%, 1% milk in the store, maybe in your refrigerator, or whatever your preference might be. And so back to the Parks and Rec quote. So skim milk is not just watered down milk. So what happens is when it's all collected, it's put into a big vat or container, and all of the fat is then removed. So you are left with all the components that we talked about other than the fat portion, okay? And then fat is added back in, depending on what type of milk is being produced, to a certain percentage of weight. So your 2% milk, okay, is not necessarily that whole that container contains 2% milk. It's that it's 2% fat, okay, by volume. Same thing with 1%, right? That's going to be just a little bit less. And then skim milk, okay, is going to have all of that fat, or the vast majority of that fat is going to be removed, okay, during that process. When we do this particular, or talk about this particular topic in class, some of the questions that we get, well, how long does it take to go from, Farmer Joe's cow out in a pasture to our container of milk that we're going to buy at the supermarket? And so that can depend on a couple of different factors. Some of those will be, one, proximity of the milk processing facility to the particular grocery store you are shopping at. But for the most part, it's going to be about 2 to 3 days. Okay, so we're talking coming out of cow, going into a big shipping truck, going to the processor, pasteurization, homogenization, fortification, a lot of cations here, just like I need a vacation. But all those things are going to happen, okay, and then it's bottled, shipped to the store, all in about 2 to 3 days. Okay, on this particular product here, it says best buy 9/20. So I bought it today, so it gives me a little while to be able to enjoy this delicious treat. Milk needs to be refrigerated at roughly 40 degrees or under. If you get over that, or the warmer you get, the more active decomposition can happen, especially if it's exposed to oxygen. The process of pasteurization does not eliminate all of the different bacteria. So even if this is sealed, anaerobic bacteria can break it down. Okay. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to email me, owen.hossack@sequoiaeagles.net. Miss Bacon, do we have any questions on there? Nope. Okay. I hope everybody is doing good. We will be back one more time next week. I'm excited about that. We'll have some cool hands-on things that you can do at home. If there's any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I appreciate this opportunity. It allows me to get out of the house and virtually kind of spend some time with you guys doing what I love, and that's teaching. So thank you, and have a great rest of your day.